So we're live. Welcome to the Hayek Business Review talks, and we're live today with Nancy Thompson. Nancy is founder and president of Vorticom, a media company, and also a former professional violinist. And we're going to talk today about the article that she has written to the Hayek Business Review, which is The Accidental Publicist, The Unexpected Path from Music to Marketing. And we're going to be back right after the countdown.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? This is a global transmission. Hayek will be live in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enjoy the show.
All right, and now we're back. So Nancy, tell us about your story and the transition you had made from music to being a publicist.
Well, it wasn't an easy transition, Edson. When you're in one world, which is classical music, it's very regimented, it's very strict, and it has its rewards. You become the best that you can be in that craft. And my transition was essentially that while I had the talent to have a professional career in music, and my very first job was in La Filarmónica de las Americas in Mexico City. I was paid, right? I was only 17 years old, but I did not personally I didn't want to do it. It was one of those things where I had a family of musicians. I had three other siblings that were all musicians, all went to Juilliard, had professional jobs in music. And it was really just considered that was what you're going to do. There were no other options. So in fact, when I decided I didn't want the pressure of it anymore, because it is great pressure. The thing is about classical music or anything that is performance, there's so much pressure that you're putting on a young person to do that. And so when I decided I did not want to do it, the response from my parent, from my father, was, "You can't do that. You don't know if you have any other talents at all." So he was just like, "No, you can't do it." And
How old were you when that happened?
I was like 18. And so I did ultimately leave music, and I went into rock viola. I had electric violin made up and a couple of them made up, and I did that for a while. But I really was not, really did not want to pursue that as a career. Mm-hmm. It created too much anxiety for me, ultimately.
Right.
So I literally stumbled into PR, mainly via keyboarding skills, right? Back in the day when I was looking for a job and I didn't have a family that was going to support me in the arts anyway, but I had to find a gig. And so I just showed up at different employment offices after graduating college, not as a musician.
And what did you do in college?
In college, I was an English major, English journalism minor.
So you liked writing?
I did like writing. And so I decided I wanted to pursue something along that line. I knew how hard it would be, but that I was attracted to that. But no one wants to hire, people immediately for those kind of editorial jobs. It's pretty difficult, particularly at the time that I was entering that workforce. And so what was available to me were a lot of temporary agencies. So I would just walk into temporary agencies, and I would have to take a typing test. And because of my musical background and, fast fingers and all that, I was extremely fast typist, fast and very accurate. So I would just go in and, type away, and they'd be like, "Hey, you can get any job you want, as a temp, right? So tell us where you want to go." And one of the interviews, they had something open in a major publishing house. And I said, "Well, that sounds great. I'd love to go there." And so that's how I ended up getting my first PR job at Simon & Schuster Pocketbooks.
Cool. So
yeah.
I'm just curious there. You had a strong background in music, and it's often I thought it was curious how your parents were pressuring you to become a musician,
Mm,
and it's a tough job. Like I had a similar experience because I was a tennis player,
mm,
um, and
right.
I wanted to be a professional. And with any career that involves a very high level of skills that you need to get, it's very hard. Like people don't
Yes,
realize it until they actually get into
absolutely.
doing it. And I think with music, it's the same.
Exactly.
But at the same time, you earn skills that are very valuable that you can apply anywhere else. Like with
Yes.
for my case, for example, with tennis, you're able to get the skills of discipline,
Yes.
of having knowing how to train and
Yes.
group work and leadership. There's a lot that goes into that. And I guess with music, the same thing, right? Are there some skills that you got from music that you were able to apply in your other jobs?
It's absolutely the same things. I mean, because think about it, to learn an instrument at the level, the caliber I had to get to, I was alone in a room practicing for hours, right? I didn't have very many friendships. Everything was sacrificed to be able to play that instrument, to memorize pieces, to be able to be ready for the next concert, whatever that was, to enter contests. Like in tennis, you're entering competitions, and in music, there are contests to win. So it goes on and on and on. So I always joke about that everything is easier than that.
Right.
So people will be like, "Oh my gosh, this is so stressful." I'm like, "No, this is like nothing." So what that I have to sit here and figure something complicated out? There's not, I'm not having to play in front of a bunch of people, maybe be nervous that day and really screw up, right? So everything to me is easier compared to that. So yeah,
Right.
it's that perspective. But the hardest part, I think, for me was when you're at that high level and then you have that respect for what you can do. And then now you decide, well, I decided not to do it. I had nothing going for me really,
No
other than
work.
I was a fast
Right.
typist, right? So my launch pad into life was, I was fairly anonymous when I was at Simon and Schuster. I didn't talk about my music or anything like that. I was literally just the temp who could type fast. Um,
Hmm.
and I just sat there and had to, do really a lot of menial work, a lot of whatever it was that needed to be done, until finally there was a need for someone to do a press release, and it was sort of hadn't been assigned. And they're like, well, maybe the temp can do it. And so, yeah, I got the opportunity to write a press release, which I hadn't done before, but I've been, typing everyone else's at that point for so long. It really wasn't very difficult. So it's, that's the hard part in anything when you're transitioning from something that you're really great at and everyone knows you're great at it, is how do you reinvent yourself and then to the level where you're then proud of what you're doing and feeling a sense of accomplishment. Not easy. It
Right.
really isn't.
What was the key there to make the transition and build confidence in this new skill that you were doing?
The key to deciding it was PR, it was really just that first temp job. I ended up learning the skills of public relations, how it was applied in book publicity, which is a really high intensity, intense way to do PR, really. So learned it there. And then I had a series of other jobs, and I mean, quite frankly, when I was in my 20s, I took a lot of jobs and I quit them often very quickly. I was very, well, it doesn't matter. I'm not making that much money. I'll go in, I'll do it. I don't like it. I'll start something else. So I had a series of jobs like that, just relying on the fact that I had these fast typing skills and I could kind of go in and out of a lot of different environments. So not every job that I did, even after Simon & Schuster, was PR. It was a variety of different office settings. But I would say what probably made me feel that PR was a great track for me was when I landed a job at Bantam Computer Books,
Hmm.
which was just computer books, right? It was like the all the famous people of the time, Peter Norton, and, you know, everybody who was a famous software titan had a series of books. And so they published those books. And it was a job where essentially there was only one PR person responsible for every single title. And I was that person. And I really learned, hey, this is a very, you know, this is a very productive career. This is a way to really make visibility. And I essentially took those skills and then, you know, went off into, you know, agencies and agency life. Because I felt, okay, I'll make more money. Because as we all know, publishing is not like a high payer for anybody, right? There's very few publishing jobs unless you're the editor in chief of a imprint or some such thing. You know, you make decent money, but most you don't. So the PR agency world was definitely one that paid better. And so I just transitioned those skills to, you know, go into agency life.
So then you made a career with agencies, and I'm guessing with marketing, right? With more.
Well, it was all PR. It was all public relations. Yeah.
Okay.
At the top 10 global agencies.
Top 10 global agencies.
And I reached a high level. I was an SVP in technology group and in the B2B groups. So I reached a high level at those places.
And how did you progress into founding Vorticom?
Well, you know, things happen, you know, when you look back on it, you know, you're grateful, but at the time they're probably, you know, pretty difficult. So at the last big agency that I was at, I started in a bad way. I think I've learned since, I think if you start anywhere where you're inheriting a group of people, you have to make sure those people are loyal to you. And if they're not, you just have to get rid of them, right? And so I really didn't do that. So I had a bunch of people that were not loyal at all. They all wanted someone else to have my job. And so they were incredibly nasty and horrible to be around. So ultimately, that coincided with the fact that the economy in the technology sector that I was representing had really melted down. So I was in charge of bringing business, and I was basically treading water at that agency. I was able to replenish income. It was very difficult, but I wasn't meeting their marks.
What year was that, more or less?
That was 2002. 2002.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was the tech crisis.
Right, exactly. So there I was, hired before that, and just, you know, and going out there and getting business, but it was never good enough because they had these giant forecasts as a publicly traded company that they wanted to reach, and I wasn't making them. And so I got the axe. You know, I got terminated, and I came away from that thinking, you know, what am I going to do, right? You know, at that point, I also had a son who was young, and, you know, a lot of responsibilities. And I turned to my husband and I said, you know, really have to think this through. You know, and I went on one interview after that. And you have to realize I brought in millions of dollars of business to these companies, right? And so, but that wasn't enough. But so I went on one interview and at this other giant company, and this real battle axe of a woman comes out. And I'm like, oh boy, right? I shouldn't say that about people, but it's true. And she had this attitude of like, well, you know, who are you? You're nothing. And at that point I had a resume.
And that was during the interview.
During the interview. It was very like, and I was feeling like, hey, you know what? I'm actually a huge asset to any company. And they should be kind of treating me that way. And I felt like they weren't. And I didn't want anything to do with it. And I walked, you know, with interview ended, and I thought, well, I could go on more of these, but yuck, why do I want to go back into that? It's like a cesspool to me, these places. So I spoke to my husband and I said, hey, I think I just need some time to reflect and think what, you know, would be a next best step. And I'd always wanted to go to Sedona in Arizona, if you've heard of. And it has red rocks. It's considered to be a meditative place in the desert in the United States. So I went there, and just for a couple of days, and I sat and I reflected, and I started to read up on vortexes, which is, you're all surrounded by that in Sedona, the vortexes and the energy that it brings. And I came back thinking, one, I love the name Vortex, and I love the name, I wanted to like somehow think of, hey, could we have our own PR agency? So I brought that to my partner, and I was like, can we create a name, because that uses Vortex somehow, that's not Vortex public relations, but conjures that up. And he, like, in a day or so, came up with a bunch of names. So one of them was Vorticom. And I thought that was great. So we went and we trademarked it, and we decided, hey, let's just do our own thing. The worst that can happen is that, I'll have to go back and, go back to another big agency and get a gig. But very fortunately, companies found me. So companies that I had worked with before at the big agencies really found me, and I was able to get clients essentially without doing anything at all. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So these were clients that already knew you from previous relationships.
Exactly. And that's generally been the trajectory of my agency life. I'm not out there pitching, because anytime that my company's presented for pitches, it usually is just like someone wants to have a bunch of options, but they're really going to go with who they know. So if it doesn't come by referral, it's generally not worth it for me. Mm-hmm. So I just I don't participate in those things.
Could we quickly go through the nuts and bolts of what PR is all about and what's the key to success?
Absolutely. Well, I focus specifically on editorial PR, so earned media. So there are some communications agencies that do a lot of pay-to-play type things, mm-hmm. where they encourage their clients to pay X amount of money for certain coverage. And that's
in
not
the media, like in newspapers and
it's everywhere. It's online, it's in newspapers, it's on broadcast outlets. There's so mm-hmm. much pay-to-play options, more and more almost every day. So, our path is never that one. It's never the pay-to-play options. It's always the earned media. Mm-hmm. So that's really what it is. It's figuring out what the path is for that company to get earned media. And every single company that we've taken on, it's a different path because every company is different.
So you have relationship with journalists and other type of people who can get the earned media for your clients.
All around the world, all around the world. So, I mean, I have a client currently that has assets in Brazil and in Chile, for example. And so I'm very familiar with a number of reporters in Chile and Brazil that usually what we do is kind of work with Western media that are in bureaus in other parts of the country or other parts of the world where the company has a stake. So mm-hmm. we do a lot of that, a lot of international media through Western media.
So you have partners all around the world who you can send the media release to, and they can.
Well, I wouldn't call them partners. I mean, they're reporters, right?
Reporters, right? Yeah.
So they don't consider themselves a partner. They have to have a reason to want to do that story. So as you can know someone really well, and if it's not a story that resonates with them, they're not going to do it. Mm-hmm. So that's just the way it is. So you always have to kind of be thinking, how does this work into the mix? Not just about that company, but where is it as pertains to trends, and other things relating to that. So
very cool.
Yeah.
And how has it been the challenge to build up the company once you have started?
Well, I didn't have a goal of trying to get a giant company. Mm-hmm. My goal was simply to meet the needs of what we wanted to build financially.
Right.
So having a place in New York City where there's separate office space within our residence to do work, that was really the dream. Like, how do we mm-hmm. do that? How do we get to that place? And so the business has enabled us to do that. So, But some people kind of build a business and they build it because they want to have lots of employees, and that has never been our goal.
And I'm guessing that in a business like PR, it's a lot about relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably a very big asset in the company and in the relationship that you have with other journalists, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that definitely helps. But in a lot of ways, in media relations, you're only as good as your last story, right? So it's always new hurdles. It's never an easy career in any way. You always have to be thinking. You always have to be challenging, yourself and the client that you're working with in terms of where you can bring out the media story. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, it helps to know people, but it's not like, oh, somebody and everything is a wonderful, holiday. It really isn't that way. It hasn't been for me. So, but meanwhile, I mean, I work with one particular new client. I won't say the name, but started in April, and they laid out what they wanted in terms of earned media, and we secured the Wall Street Journal. We secured Bloomberg News twice. We secured a feature interview on CNBC International, the first ever, I think, for that CEO. We secured another one on Bloomberg TV that just happened this weekend, and it was going to be airing later. And then another one on Canada's Bloomberg television outlet. So that's just, and there's more, but that, it's kind of crazy. So,
and that is without paying for ads, right?
No ads.
It's just organic.
That's not, you don't kill it organic. I mean, it was all really, bringing to light to reporters certain things.
Well, just so we get the terms right. Mm-hmm. So when you say earned media, that's when let's say the journalist chooses to write the story on that person for free, right?
Well, I mean, he's getting paid. He's a journalist who's getting paid, but he's deciding to do it because he or she thinks there are angles there that are newsworthy.
Right.
And so, but what does happen is that CEO might think that angle A is the most newsworthy, and the reporter might think it's angle B, and ultimately it's going to be what the reporter wants to write. It's not a press release service, and that's often the biggest thing that every person that's new to PR doesn't understand that. They think, and I think some of it is because of the pervasiveness of the pay-to-play culture. Mm-hmm. Which you can have them write whatever you want because you're paying them whatever, $30,000, $10,000, whatever it is. It's not the way in earned media. They have to have a reason to do it. They have to think it meets their editorial needs. There's a news angle that works for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And tell us about Substack and the work you've been doing in your website.
Absolutely. So Substack, I created a Substack called The Accidental Publicist, and that really was the inspiration was the piece that I did for you. Because that was named The Accidental Publicist, my unexpected path from music to marketing. So it kind of hit me that would make a really good Substack.
Oh, did you just create it?
I created it only just at the end of June.
Oh, awesome!
The end of June, yeah. So I wrote this piece for Burke and you. It was in December of last year, right? So time went by, and I actually forgot I even wrote it. Burke was like, "Oh, here's the cover." I'm like, "Oh," and so it kind of like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. I wrote that piece," and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty good, the title." And so that got my mind thinking, and I ended up starting a Substack. So I've got I have maybe like 400 followers. I'd be very honored if anyone from your audience came and joined. It's free to subscribe. And it's called The Accidental Publicist on Substack. So if you just do the keywords Accidental Publicist, you'll find me.
So if you're watching us on YouTube, we're going to include the link in the description after this live, and you can certainly check it there.
Thank you.
So yeah, amazing stuff. And what someone who's starting, let's say someone wants to start as in the PR career, isn't sure what exactly they should be doing to increase their skills, right? To open their skills. What would you say to a person who's starting in PR?
When I started, I didn't know of any programs that taught PR. Like I studied, a minor in journalism. They may have been available, but I wasn't familiar with them. Today I know there's a ton of programs about PR, and they can be really good. So I think that could be a place to start if you're in college and you want to take a few courses. I think that could be helpful. But I think ultimately the most real world thing is just to start. And if you have an internship to take, take it. There are paid internships for agencies all the time. There's all different types of ways to start. And then you kind of get to know what the day-to-day is like, because it really is different. Every day is sort of different in terms of, what happens, and it also depends on who you're working with. If you're internal at a company, there's one track, to do like corporate PR. And if you're agency related, you're going to have to deal with it, dealing with a number of different companies, and you end up figuring out if you're going to build a specialty or different track, or different sector that you want to participate in. But I think probably number one, if you can do a course in college, take it, and find an internship somewhere, paid or unpaid, whatever you can manage, and then just get a gig and see if you like it.
Right. Do you have to be a good networker to be in PR?
People say that. I don't think I'm a particularly good networker at all. Meanwhile, I know a lot of people, but I'm not that person at the party that's knows everybody and introducing people. I wish I was, but I'm kind of an insular person, so I'm in my mind in terms of thinking. But I think there's a role for PR people that can put together the parts of the puzzle, because every bridge that you build to client visibility, there's a puzzle and you have to solve it, because the client always thinks this is the way. Everyone cares about this. This could be any kind of thing. It could be really boring things that no one cares about. And you have to kind of go, well, what is the real story? Let's figure that out. And so you have to be the kind of person that will do that, and to be able to, push back and explain that to whoever you're working with, why you're going that way.
Right.
So, yeah.
And understand what type of interest is in the general public or the reporter who wants to get that story.
Exactly.
Right? And how that matches my client's needs. And
exactly.
Yes, that's what you mean by putting together the pieces of the puzzle.
Exactly. I just put together on my Substack, because I was thinking about how artificial intelligence has become, it's just everywhere. And it's everywhere in PR in terms of the tools. A lot of our tools that we use are being supercharged with AI. And if they're not, they're going to be, but most of them are. And it's also, AI has proven to be this place where you can brainstorm, essentially, right? And the more it knows you and the way that you think, the better it is with the brainstorming. So, I've over the last couple of years really gotten into working with like ChatGPT, for example, and brainstorming and going,
right.
Here's a trend I'm thinking about, whatever. It's only as good as what you give it, right?
Right.
So, and you have to really take back what's coming in from it logically, because a lot of it, it's riddled with mistakes as well still, right? It's not like a perfect system. But among that, there's so much good in it. There truly is. There's so much progress you can make. So I put together a free ebook called 10 AI Prompts to Supercharge Your PR Pitches. I'm giving it away to everyone. It's not a super long thing. It's like a 15-page document. And so people log into my Substack and join. They can download it for free at any time.
Amazing.
But yeah. I'm realizing the thing is, there's a lot to know about PR. There's a lot to share, and you can't get stuck in the way you're doing things. And there are some people anyway that have been in PR a long time, and they don't want to change the way they do anything. They want everything to be the same. And you can't be that way. I don't think in any industry, but I think in PR, it's particularly difficult to be that way. You have to kind of go with the times and take the initiative to learn the tools, learn the advances. When I started in PR, everything was a paper directory for media lists, right? It was a paper, literally, books that you had to look at that were out of date as soon as you got them. So then that went to floppy drives, right? Floppy disks. And those also weren't that great. And then that finally went online, which was not that great when it started. And that's gotten sort of better and better. But, you have to kind of go with the times and use the best technology you can.
Right.
Yeah.
My experience is all with higher education, and we've seen a lot of changes with the whole technology. The whole world changed.
Sure.
And we went from having all the information stored in books to having it in Google.
Right.
And then smartphones came along and made it even easier. And now we have ChatGPT, right? Which is another revolution that we're coming through.
Yeah.
And the biggest issue we have today is that we give homework to the student, and we don't know if it's a student who did it anymore, right?
Right. I could see that would be very challenging. Yeah, I could see that would be very challenging.
So professors have to change the entire way they do things in the classroom.
Right. Yeah.
Do you see such a challenge or a big change in the way people do things in PR because of AI today?
Well, for sure. It can lead to the lazy factor. Like we were talking, the AI engines are not always right. They're only as good as the information you give them in a lot of cases. And you have to really kind of glean the best of it, as opposed to just saying, here's some info, make it into a press release. Like, you can't do that. And you can do it, but it's not going to be very good. So, but I really kind of wonder what the next generation will be, that are literally grown up on AI. That's going to be tough, because you do need the mental ability to be able to do that on your own before you can go to the machines.
Exactly.
I really believe that. You really do need that. Some of my very first interviews, they sat me alone in a room and they said, okay, to apply for this job, you have to write this press release, and here's the facts, and you have to put it together in a press release and give it to us in 40 minutes or something, right?
Right.
So I think it would be difficult to do that if you only had depended on ChatGPT or any of the AI platforms to get all the thinking for you. So it's concerning.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a challenge of what we do with education with that. Something we can relate to is like the GPS, right? Before the GPS, everyone was good with directions. And after the GPS came along, nobody knows directions anymore. We just rely on the GPS and we go to one place to the other.
That's very true. Yeah.
And so we can say the same thing with calculators, right? We rarely do any calculations by hand because we have the calculator to relate on.
It's true. Right.
And so what happens now when your ability of communication might be hindered because you have ChatGPT in your Yov, right? So it's a question that we don't really have the answer now with education, and it's something we professors have to figure out. Some are doing better jobs than others, but it's something that we're just going to have to learn.
Well, why I put together my prompts is it's kind of like the best way to use ChatGPT, because one thing for PR, you're always having to think of another angle, another way to get the company that you're working with seen in the press. And it's almost never the way that the company thinks, right? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's really, they have a great announcement, something really big. But a lot of times you don't. And so that's kind of where it helps to kind of, you don't always have someone personally to brainstorm with, and it gives you a way to do that. And you can kind of weed through a lot of different options that come up once you ask the right prompts. So, mean, I'm grateful to it, but I've reached this level where I'm not, I've already written thousands of press releases, so I know I can still sit in a room and
Right.
crank one out. I don't need, machine learning to do that for me. But
But because you have that skill, you can also communicate much better with the machine.
Right. I guess that's probably true. That's probably true. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It's a close personal friend now.
Exactly. It's like your personal intern with a PhD that can write anything really fast for you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Nancy, last question.
Sure.
What if you were to give one tip for someone who's coming out of college right now or in college, what would it be? Like general idea. What would the one thing that you learned the hard way and you want some to get from?
Now, are we talking about the field of public relations or anything?
We can talk about it in general.
Well, I mean, ultimately, if you're young and you can start anywhere, my best advice would be go into the hottest sector there is. And so like AI is that hot sector. So if you're right out of school, go join a company. It doesn't have to be one of the mega ones that we all know of now. It could be an upstart one, but I think that's probably one of the smartest things to do. So, and whatever your skill set is, if you are a PR person, they're probably going to need that. If you're an engineer, of course they're going to need that. So it's whatever your skill set is. I would bring it into the fastest moving, revolutionary sector, which is AI.
Right. So
yeah,
people are out there, no matter what skill you're in, look for something in the hot industry, such as AI today, and that's a good way to go.
Because I kind of regret. I mean, I had opportunities to meet with different companies like Google back before it was really Google even. And I didn't think of like, oh, I should go after that and go get a job there. I'm like, why didn't I do that? Like, it was clear they were on their way up, right? So, I think sometimes, you just have to be kind of thoughtful about it and think, well, if I spend, 10 years in this sector, how will that help me, right? It might be that you get stock options in that company. You might never have to work again. It might be that you just learn a whole lot that you can bring to the next company that's going to bring you even a greater visibility and success. But it really helps to kind of start in one place where you can kind of branch out from. I mean, look at like Meta today, where they're looking to get the AI engineers and pay any kind of amount of money to get them, right? They're just like, it's ridiculous. So that's what I would say.
Some AI engineers have become like soccer superstars that
right.
Everyone's going after them, paying a huge amount of money. Right?
It's insane. It's insane. But not everybody can be that engineer, but you can still be at one of those companies doing whatever the job is. There's a lot of different other jobs. And, so I mean, I think that's really what I would say to my younger self. There was no AI then, although, I had gone to Israel for an AI company back in 2020. They were doing AI and they were doing a lot of language modeling, but it was nowhere what is happening now.
Right.
But it's been talked about obviously for a very, very long time and been in development. So
great.
Yeah.
Nancy, if people want to get in touch with you after listening to our conversation, what should they do?
Certainly can email me. I could
or LinkedIn
or LinkedIn. Absolutely. LinkedIn's great. I see you guys are on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.
Sure.
Nancy Thompson.
Sure.
Vorticom. Definitely there. That would be great. I would love to hear from people.
Very cool. Thank you very much for our conversation today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Edson. It's a great pleasure.
My honor.
All right.